Hey everybody, it's me as always, your host Gambit896, and I'm back with another video for you guys. Today I'll be reviewing Harbinger, Volume 1, Omega Rising. The series is written by Joshua Dysart, and on this first volume we have Khari Evans, Larosa Matthew Clark on the artwork, and on the inks we have Ian Hannin, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Hannin, and Moose Bauman on the inks, and this first trade collects the first 5 issues of the Harbinger series, which is published by Valiant. So the story starts out and we meet our main character, who we see on this front cover here, the character of Peter Stanchek, who we find out is a telepath and a telekinetic, which means he can read people's minds and he can move things with the powers of his mind. And we find out that Pete and his friend Joe are on the lam and on the run from the authorities, and we find out that Peter is popping pills in order to keep his superhuman abilities under control. And the main reason why he's popping the pills is because if he doesn't, then that means he can hear everybody's thoughts that he walks past down the street. As you can see again from the front cover, we see these kind of blurred out word bubbles are essentially the people's thoughts that he can hear as he walks past them. And so we have that, and we also have Pete returning to his old neighborhood, where he hooks up with a old childhood sweetheart of his, who we see in a brief flashback of Show and Tell, and we find out that as I said, the girl that he hooks back up with in his old neighborhood used to be one of his old childhood sweethearts, which they do essentially reunite, but not in the conventional sense. And we also get introduced to Toyo Harada, who is a psyot and who is basically the guy that comes to Peter and explains the situation to Peter and explains to him what exactly he is. And that is essentially a person within this new race of beings known as psyots with superhuman abilities. And he offers Peter the chance to learn to essentially master his abilities at Harada's school for the gifted, essentially, at the Harbinger Foundation. And we also see that within this Valiant universe, we have a really cool nod and wink to Project Rising Spirit, which is an organization that shows up in the pages of Dwayne Straczynski's Bloodshot series, again from the same shared rebooted Valiant universe. And here we see an example of exactly what Peter can do with his mind, as you can see there. And he's also using his mind-wiping abilities on Mr. Tull, who is a employee of Project Rising Spirit, which is essentially sent to track down both Peter and his best friend Joe. So then we have Peter being inducted into the Harbinger Foundation. One of the things that's really cool about the Harbinger series, and particularly when new characters are introduced, and I'm not sure how well you guys are going to be able to see this, but we see these really cool little mini dialogue boxes with basically a breakdown of who the person is, what their code name is, and what their abilities are within the Harbinger Foundation. So it's kind of like the Harbinger Foundation is kind of like an Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, only they're not mutants. They are essentially superpowered beings, essentially. And on Peter's very first day, we get introduced to the campus sort of psychologist, if you will, and we then get some flashbacks to Peter's tragic past and the horrific and tragic outcomes of what happened when he was a young child, when his powers first essentially manifested. And I have to say the flashback sequences are really well done. and also the artwork by Khari Evans, Lewis Larosa and Matthew Wilson is also really good, and also the writing by Joshua Dysart. So we then have a really cool short-lived fight scene between Pete and one of his fellow students, and there's a really cool remark about the first day of school always tends to suck, which you can literally apply to obviously being in school within the real world, or I think anyway. School is not that bad. And then throughout the course of the book we have this build-up of all of these different really cool aspects of the series that are being introduced. Here we see a training sequence with Peter and some of his fellow students, and we find out some of the other abilities that Peter has at his disposal through these training sequences, and again the really cool little mini description boxes that are being used throughout the series. We also get some background information on Toyo Harada himself, and his past, and how his powers first manifested. And we also get introduced to the character of Faith, who I really like, and I just think she's the definition of just cool, in my opinion. There's also some really cool pop culture references peppered throughout these first 5 issues of the Harbinger series. And we also have a really cool story moment and a great reveal at the end of issue 4, which leads to a really great action-packed issue number 5. I've kind of glanced over the story a little bit because I feel that this is a story that you need to essentially read and experience for yourselves. And we find out that there's this ongoing prophecy with Peter from Harada being in consultation with this being known as the Bleeding Monk, who is essentially a being and a very powerful psyop that can see into the future and visions of it and whatnot. Here we see a really cool fisticuff scene between High Moon, who is the headmaster of the Harbinger Foundation, and Peter, which leads to a very bloody and a very bloody conclusion for High Moon. And we find out that Peter is very powerful, but at the same time he does have his work cut out for him when he comes up against some of the instructors that Harada rallies to his side during this brief but really action-packed battle sequence between Peter and some of the Harbinger Foundation members, as you can see there and there. I'll also show you another few pages of the artwork. As you can see, once again, there's a lot of really cool superpowered action sequences in this 5th issue, as you can see there and there. I've said this before and I'll say it again: if you're not reading Valiant or any of the books that Valiant have to offer with their newly rebooted universe, I highly recommend you check out Valiant, especially Harbinger, along with Archer and Armstrong, Exo Manowar and Bloodshot. And I'll leave some links within this video to some of my previous review videos on those particular series from Valiant, if anybody's interested in checking those out. If I had to describe this series to you, it's basically Valiant meets X-Men meets real life superheroes without the kind of shtick, if you will, of the capes and the tights, and basically superheroes within the confines of what they would be within the modern world, essentially. Like I said, the writing in this by Joshua Dysart is really good and really solid. The artwork by Khari Evans, along with assistance from, as I've said, Larosa and Matthew Clark, is also really good. Both Ian Hannon and Moose Bowman do a really good job with the inks of bringing the artwork to life. If I had to give this first volume of Harbinger a rating, I'd give it an absolute 5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. And that about concludes this review video, guys. Thank you everybody for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. As always, feel free to tell me why you didn't like the video in the comment section below, or send me a private message. If this is your first time viewing one of my videos and you'd like to see more, please feel free to subscribe. And until next time, this is Gambit896 signing off, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care, guys.